we welcome you back inside the steam room. And as we like to tell all of our guests, please keep the towel on and look at the towel worn by our next guest. Nice CNN logo. It looks like like the image of Ted Turner on there, but from CNN, Don Lemon joins us in the steam room.
A very special gift.
It's a short towel. It's one of those little mini ones.
Hey, it is great to have you with us, and man, I don't even know how you would best sum up your job over the last. I would say the last 2 weeks, but I mean, from the pandemic through the protests in the streets. I mean, what is it like to be on the air on CNN at a time like this?
Well, it's challenging, yet it's empowering at the same time. I sort of have a bit of Charles Barkley in my DNA, in that I always look for the bright side, or what's going to come out of this. And I'm very conscious of what's going on and how dire it is, but I also keep thinking there's got to be better. Things have to get better. What's gonna come out of this? So,
Don, how many years you been in the news?
I've been doing the news since 1990. I've been in the news business since 91, I think. 1991, I think.
You worked in Birmingham for a while, right?
I did.
Yeah,
I did. But to get back to you, it's tough right now. I'm exhausted. I was exhausted from the pandemic, because we had been on air. I mean, I've worked 7 days a week since March, I think. And then this thing happened, and so I started working 7 days a week, but then I have to work in the afternoon sometimes and fill in for breaking news. And then this is just emotional to see anybody dying. I mean, we actually saw two people die on camera. You know, we saw Ahmaud Arbery get shot, died on camera. And then we see George Floyd die on camera with someone with their knee on the neck. And then I have to talk about it all day, every day. And most people don't have to do that. You can just flip the TV off when you're ready, right? Put your phone down when you don't want to read anymore. And I can't do that. So, I mean, honestly, it's been tough. And I hope my colleagues are doing what I do and talking to their therapist as much as they can during the week.
Hey, I told Ernie last week, I said, and you're a black man just like me. I said, man, it is stressful being a black man, especially when you're on television in any shape, because, and you just alluded to it, like the young man Arbery killed in Atlanta,
Mm-hmm.
the crazy white lady in New York, and now you got Mr. Floyd. Like, it's exhausting having to talk about, defend, make people listen. Do you feel that pressure like I do?
I do feel the pressure because, we always feel like we have to represent the race, right? And I don't know if that's fair or not, but it is what it is. And we feel that pressure. So yeah, I do. But it's also very personal because you see yourself in those people. And Ahmaud Arbery, we live in this HGTV society now, right? That's what I love to do. Wherever I move, whatever city, when I was in Atlanta, redo my house, right? You want to make it your own. And it's in a way, it's kind of an escape because, from the realities of your job. So I go on properties all the time. My fiance's in real estate. We go on property and look at, if there's a for sale sign or for property company, we go look. So I can relate to that. I can relate to being a jogger. I can relate to being in the park, Christian Cooper, you mentioned, and, people thinking that they can say whatever they want to you. And then, of course, I can relate to being pulled over by the police and interactions that I've had with the police. And then, until recently, when I became somebody, right, they treat you a certain way. And even until they realize it, like they don't realize it, and they see the license and they go, "Oh, you're the guy on CNN." So, and then to have the funerals play out, my sister died recently, and Charles, thank you, because you always, every time something happens, you always reach out. And I had to give part of the eulogy. And so I can relate to that. I can't imagine having to go through these things publicly in front of the whole world. So yes, I relate as a human being more than anything, but as a Black man, I see portions of myself and my family in it, and then I'm there reporting it. It's unbelievable. Can I tell you one story? I was the night I was broadcasting from my home studio. The night everything was on fire, right? I think this was a bunker night. The White House was going, they were starting trash can fires and trying to get and fight. And then on the West Coast, there's a fire and riots and whatever. And I'm sitting in my home studio by myself, and I'm like, it was almost as if it was some weird Twilight Zone kind of thing where it was me against the world. I'm like, is anybody watching? Is anybody out there watching? Our country is on fire. It's in chaos. Help. And it was almost as if I was like in a Twilight Zone movie that I was reporting on, like the end of the world. It's just crazy. It's crazy. That's all I can tell you.
Yeah. And when you were in school, so you started LSU, correct? And I don't know how much broadcasting studies you did there, or if that was more at Brooklyn College. But
no, I did it there. My journalism teacher told me at LSU that I would never make it as a journalist. But he was right. Well,
take that. But you know what? Because I was at the University of Georgia, and that was before. That was in the 70s. I graduated in 78. But I think I remember being at J school, and you're taught, news guy, got to play right down the middle. You're objective. You don't even stress a number because it's going to sound like you're surprised that it's this many, or that you cannot emote, and you cannot take a side, and it's all got to be right down the middle. But that's not the same. It's not the same world. It's not the same. It's just changed, man. I mean, I assume you heard those same kind of things when you were in J school.
Of course, you have to be. You've got to be objective. So what's your question about how it's changed? Or?
How it's changed, and the fact that, I mean, you're on when I look at you and I look at Fox and I look at it's opinion. Nobody's trying to hide their opinion.
Well, here's the thing. I prefer what I do to, for how I lean in as a point of view and not an opinion, because I always get facts. My thing is always based in facts. It's not based in conspiracy theory. And I don't make up things about people. And I give you, this is my point of view, is my point of view. We all come with a point of view. But just to be honest with you, it's not 1978 anymore. It's not even 2000. No, seriously, It's not even 2008. It's not even 2018. I mean, things are different now. It used to be that the anchor man was sort of this character that you could just cast whatever opinion that you thought that they might be like on, right? They were just sort of a whiteboard that you could just make it whatever. It's just this guy who sat there. Well, in the advent of social media and 24-hour media, that's not how it is anymore. And also within journalism, there are different roles. If I had Lester Holt's job, I would be a much more straightforward news guy, because I'm sitting there every night, good evening, welcome to Nightly News, blah, 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 blah. Here's a story. This reporter's here. Boom. Come back. Right. Thank you, Rob. And then you go to the next story. That's not my role. My role is to sit there for however many hours I'm on and have a conversation with the viewer and inform them. So I have to fill time almost as if I'm a radio show, or like you guys do when you're doing your sports show, or you're doing a play-by-play. My role is different, and I can lean in and give a point of view. But you also have to remember, Ernie, the times that we're in right now when journalism is under attack. We're not dealing with a normal situation right now. We're dealing with people who attack journalists, they attack reality, they attack truth. And many times when you are giving the truth and telling the truth about someone, it may look like you are either giving your opinion or partisan, because the truth isn't on that side. So if I say the person lied, they're going to say, oh, you're just a big liberal. And I'll go, no. What you actually did was, what you said was a lie. Oh, you're just a conservative. No, what you actually said was a lie, and you're deflecting. So I'm not giving an opinion, I'm giving facts many times, but the people out there who are steeped in ideology, or they have some sort of reason to discount what I'm saying, will say that I'm partisan or giving an opinion because they don't like the fact that I'm spitting at them.
You know, you look at our president, and when the rioting and looting is going on, I mean, and peaceful protests, he's talking about is skinheads in the mix, Antifa's in the mix. Number one, how do you prove that? But how do you, as a journalist, I mean, how do you answer that question?
What about who's in there and who's? Listen, when it's going on in the moment, I don't know. I'm sitting here just like I'm sitting in the moment, just like you. When I'm live. If you're talking about when I'm live, and I have to rely on producers to give me information. But in the aftermath of that, when you've had time to do some research, then just like anything else, you do your research. There is very little evidence, if none, there may be no evidence that there's Antifa or anybody in those crowds or skinheads. There's more evidence that there were right-wing extremists in the crowd because they've been arrested. And that's not to say that other people aren't in the crowd, but at this juncture, no one else has been arrested. No one else has been charged. So the only people who've been charged is this right-wing group who started causing chaos. We can see that there are anarchists out there. I think that's definitely true. There are people there just to start trouble, and who knows what they're from. But as far as Antifa, and the moment you try to describe Antifa, people say, "Oh, you're defending Antifa." It's not it. It is this disparate group that doesn't really have a leader, and so it's easy to say Antifa, like it's easy to say unmasking, or it's easy to say the new Black Panthers. It's easy to say Acorn because it sounds scary, right? It sounds spooky or ominous. But we don't really know if Antifa's in the crowd. People don't really know what Antifa is. And I don't think Antifa even knows what Antifa is. And I think it's fair to say that there are anarchists, left-wing anarchists, right-wing anarchists, all kinds of anarchists out there. But to put a name on it and say it's definitely this one group, I don't think we have the evidence yet. It could be, but at this juncture, we do not have that evidence, and it doesn't show that. That's just a sort of a boogeyman that the president and conservative media make up because they need that for the audience and they need that for their supporters.
You know, Dom, when you talk about how relentless this job has been recently for you, that really rang home to me because I know my wife and I, there are times when we say, turn it off. I just can't take any more right now.
Yep.
You know, I just can't, because we are trying to stay up to the minute. I mean, we've watched you guys and Chris and everybody nonstop. And then I can't take anymore. And so I can imagine you having to say, you don't have that option of saying, I can't take anymore. But is there, with all the hours that you've been putting in, what have you seen that's given you hope?
I see people like you and Charles. I see people like me and Chris Cuomo, who don't look like each other, who come from very different backgrounds, may not have even hung out when we were kids, who knows? Actually having real conversations and leaning on our friendship, leaning into our friendship because we know the importance of this moment and what it means right now. I see young people out there of all different ethnicities, and they are pulling us into the future that they want, into the present that they want for this country, and into the future. They don't want people dying at the hands of police. They don't want racism. They're sick of it. And in many ways, let's be honest, they don't want a lot of what we created. And maybe the times were changed, the times were different, or I'm not sure. But I think those young people think like, hey, you guys have been kind of going with the status quo and just inching along and trying to make things better, but you haven't really for everyone. And this is 2020 and it's time. We don't want the racism. We don't want the police brutality. We want criminal justice reform. They're sick of the ideology, the far left and the far right. They're over it. They want a better world, and they're out there screaming. They told you peacefully. Mm-hmm. Some even try to take a knee. Nobody listened, and now they're saying, okay, you got to hear us. So that actually makes me optimistic that those young people are leaders. I may not agree 100% with the way they do it, but their passion and that they're actually out there and they want to change, I can only respect that. I'm not talking about the looters and the rioters. That's a whole different thing. I'm talking about the kids who want what's right.
You know, in your business right now, the president of the United States says something or does something every single day that y'all have to talk about. How frustrating is that? Because I know we all live in the moment, but I can't remember going back to Clinton, Bush's, President
Reagan.
Obama, all of them. I don't remember them having to say or do something every single day where you don't get a day off. You have to talk about it every single day. It's crazy.
It's crazy. And, Ernie, you said, I watched you doing, talking about me during COVID and, the pandemic. But my schedule has been this way, and it just keeps getting crazier. I'm ripping off of what Charles said. Since this guy came down the escalator, I was supposed to do 1 hour at night at 10 o'clock, 4 nights a week, Monday through Thursday. And then on Friday, some sort of CNN documentary, Anthony Bourdain, something was going to run in that spot. Trump came down that escalator. My show became 5 nights a week. And then he started with the, I prefer heroes who aren't captured. And then just kept going on and on and on and on and on. And then my show became 2 hours, 5 nights a week, sometimes 6 or 7, since 2015. And I mean, that's a lot to take in live information. And then sometimes I'm on air longer than that because news will break. Like he will say, you can grab them by the pee. When they're star, they'll make you. I was on the air till 2 or 3 in the morning that night. And there have been other nights like that. So fast forward to now, Charles. Now you have COVID and all of this other police stuff on top of that. And whatever breaking news, whatever news might break. It is exhausting. And Ernie, the American people are exhausted. Every day the president does something or says something crazy. And sometimes things that the president will say, he'll attack me or attack someone and just say, and we don't even pay attention anymore because it's just crazy. If Barack Obama had said something about me or tweeted or said something in a press conference, everyone would be like, wait, what? The president said something? Oh my God, I can't believe the president criticized you. It'd be a big news story. Now the president tweets about you and I don't even read it. I just go, someone will say, the president tweeted about you. And I go, oh yeah, well, so today is Thursday. So what's the big deal? Because he in many ways, he's worn us out and worn us down, except for he hasn't worn us down to not tell the truth and to fact check him. But Ernie, aren't you exhausted? Charles, aren't you exhausted?
Yes.
It's information overload. You used to be able to be informed without being inundated. I don't know if that's possible anymore because there's so much going on.
No, it's true. There are a lot of voices, and there's and it's like this topic is going to be discussed all day, and you hear from countless voices on it, and then and again, from your perspective, it's like you can be sitting there right now having no idea what your lead story is going to be tonight. Whereas in years past, you might say, well, I have a pretty good idea that we're going to lead with this. But now it's like, shoot, let me know at 9:58, what we're going to lead with.
And that's happened.
Yeah.
I'll be walking to the studio and my producer, I'm like, why are you calling me? I'm like, I'm in the studio. I just saw you 30 seconds ago. And then she goes, the president just tweeted he's sending troops to blah, blah, blah. I'm just making something up. And you're like, oh, God.
Right.
Or I'll be in the open of the show. And we used to run, there used to be like an animation like, and in the animation, she'll say, stop. And I'll go, uh-oh. And she'll say, blank the prompter. And then I'm just talking. And then, you guys wear earpieces. And they'll say breaking news. And I'll say breaking news. And she'll say, the president just blah, and I'll say the president, and I repeat what she said, and then she goes, now go with prompter. I mean, that happens all the time.
Right.
So but that's where we are. It used to be, you can figure out your show. This is the lead show at this time. We're gonna have this guest. We're gonna have this guest. Now we have to make sure that we have guests who can speak on just about anything in case there's breaking news.
Have you had a chance to talk to Robin DiAngelo?
I have not. I don't think I have.
Yes,
I did. Yes, I did.
Because I'm reading that right now. And
1619. I interviewed Robin. Yeah.
Yeah, because her book White Fragility came out in 18. My wife is an avid reader, and she's the one who said, "You got to read this." I'm early on in it, and it is pretty fascinating. And it is, and if you, Chuckster, I don't know if you've heard about this book, and because she's been interviewed a lot recently, but just talking about why are white people so afraid to talk about racism?
Well, why, Ernie?
Because it makes you, I don't know. It's like, well, I'm not, and you say, well, I'm not a racist, so I can, and that's part of the thinking that's so flawed, is that, well, I haven't done anything outwardly or compared to this person, it makes you defensive. And I love the fact that she wrote that book, because you know what? You're right. It does. If she says all white Americans are racist, oh, well, maybe they are, but not me. You get this defensive posture. And that's why I'm loving reading the book, because I'm not afraid to read it. I want to learn about this. I want to know why something that I may consider to be innocent maybe is offensive to somebody else, or maybe just contributes to the problem.
Well, I think it's a couple things personally. I think number one, it's painful for white people to talk about slavery. That's just we treated people like that. I think that's a tough conversation. Every now and then when you're in school, they say, well, that was slavery. And then, hey, they go to the next subject. Like, no, slavery was a big deal. And I think it's hard for white America to talk about slavery. I think it's hard for them to talk about, and forget slavery. Let's get to the 60s. Like, wait, we don't even want to use the bathroom with you. Then we got segregated schools. Like, all these white people, they had nothing to do with it. They might have benefited from it, but they had nothing to do with it. But they have to acknowledge slavery happened. They have to acknowledge the 60s. And I think it's a lot for them to handle, because even if they aren't racist, they have to first admit they benefited from the system. But that's hard to talk about, saying, man, we treated y'all like crap and we're behind in every phase of life. And it's a tough conversation. And I'm not saying, like I say, I'm not saying who's right or who's wrong. I don't judge other people. But like, I'm gonna say, like, listen, that's a hard conversation for white people to have.
Yeah, and Don, I know you're on a tight schedule. I know you only got a couple of minutes. Let's give you the last word on this, please. And again, thank you so much for hanging with us for this afternoon, man. We appreciate you.
Let me just say this. I asked you why is it so hard? Obviously, because you're white, and I think there's a lot of white guilt going around right now, and I think it's because no one wants to be called a racist, right? It's hard to admit that you have a racial blind spot. But my answer, or that you have any sort of bias in you, whether it's unconscious or whatever. My response to that is, how could you not be racist growing up in America, right? Considering where we've come from, how could you not be racist? We all are. And let me explain that, because every year, I don't know if you guys garden, my hydrangeas come back, they'll be a different color, right? The tulips, the orchid. And you know why they're a different color? It's because of what you put in the soil. It's because of what the concentration of the soil. It has nothing to do with the plant. The plant's the same thing. We're all the same thing. But it depends on where you were raised and how you were brought up. So if you were brought up in America in a system where the default is whiteness, which is inherently biased. So the culture is centered around you. That's the normal. The factory reset for normal in America is whiteness. And so how could you not be racist considering the way that you grew up and our history, and that you don't learn about Black history and true history in schools when we grow up? So I think we should stop being so defensive and saying we're not racist, and say we are. And what do we do about it? And how do we fix that? In some way, maybe take the stigma off the term so that we can actually deal with the problem. Because we all have some degree of bias in us, right? And if you're a white person and you're in America and have been the preeminent voice, and you see all of a sudden change starts to happen, that little rumble underneath your feet can feel like discrimination or an earthquake when it's actually balancing out, and it's just leveling the playing field. So I understand why, like Charles, when you said, I understand why some people are scared, nervous. If I was an older white person and I saw all of this stuff, and I'd be like, wow, the world has certainly changed around me. Oh my gosh, look how much the world is changing. Fear. And then someone comes along and they play on that fear. Look, those people are taking your stuff. It's all free, and we're going to take our country back. That works. Because what do you want things to be the way they were? Things are never going to be the way they were. Ever. The world is good. Those young people that are out there on the street, they're fighting to change the world. It is not going back to where it was. Coal is never coming back. People are making, and not unless you're making a cell phone. So people have to change. And that's the whole point of our country, is not to stay stagnant. It's not to be Leave It to Beaver. The people who wrote our Constitution were very smart. A more perfect union. That's not a perfect, you can never reach perfect, but more perfect, which means you keep striving in this American experiment. And that means that you keep bringing other people in. So the more people who keep coming into this country, and the more we evolve, it's never going to be the way it was. And so people just need to get used to that. Otherwise, you're going to get left behind.
Well, Don,
well said.
It's perfect.
Brother. Way to finish us off.
I love your friendship. You are an example of what people should be doing. You guys have great conversations. You fight like family, because family really fight. They insult each other. You ever been to a family thing and all of a sudden you're like, how did this fight break out? And then 20 minutes later, you're having a drink and you're like, oh shit, you used to do that in high school.
That's right.
That's how real people who love each other have conversations. I love that you do that. Chris and I do that. And that's what America should be doing.
Don, here's to putting something in the soil that grows a nation that we all want. Okay. Yeah. And I appreciate your perspective, and we'll be watching, man. Thank you, Don.
Take care, man.
Thank you guys so much. Take care. Be in touch. Ernie, come on the show, and I'm going to come on you guys' show.
All right. Anytime.
I got you. Hey, we'd love to have you, man.
Thank you.